Chairman Sir, these three codes that have been brought by the government today to Parliament consolidate 25 central laws, which is an extraordinary event, I believe. I don't believe that an exercise of this nature has been ever attempted in the past, because together these bills have 411 clauses, 13 schedules, and comprise 350 pages. So it's extraordinary. I'm not sure how many members have in this short period of time been able to read it. I'm sure the minister has had a painstaking job in putting this together. The standing committee under the chairmanship of my distinguished colleague Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab has of course labored literally over many months on many of these key provisions of this bill. The government says that it has accepted almost 74% of the recommendations of the standing committee. Be that as it may, there are many novel features which I need to flag before this Honourable House for the discussion, as well as for this Honourable House to cogitate upon. There are three codes being brought. The first code, of course, which was in this entire compendium, the wages code, was brought in 2019, which we all welcomed at that point in time. And now these three codes, one is with regard to the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. One of the criticisms that we've seen, I think, has been this excessive use of delegated legislation that unfortunately is running through most of these codes. And this is something that I have personally seen. Ravi Shankar Prasad ji is here, our Honourable Law Minister. He will appreciate that sometimes excessive delegated legislation can create all sorts of problems. For instance, in the government, in the code doesn't specify many of the provisions with regard to the earlier acts. For instance, guaranteed access to drinking water, canteens, washrooms, etc. have all been left now for delegated legislation to be done by rules. Some minimum corpus of health and safety standards, I think, ought to have been defined in the code itself, could very easily have been done, and I think should have been salutary. The other thing is Section 100, Clause 127 allows the central and state governments both or either to exempt by notification any establishment from the provisions of this code. Now, this growth in economic activity cannot obviously provide a carte blanche for suspension of basic health and safety standards. This is something that the House must consider very carefully, that should this be permitted and allowed in a code which is now being brought in. I must straight away tell the House that in the context of Odisha, the Standing Committee in fact has commended the many novel initiatives which were adopted by the government of Odisha, both inside and outside the state, for the benefit of the occupational safety, health and working conditions of the interstate migrant workers during this period. Many people say that there is a lot of migrant labor that goes out of Odisha to work outside, and there are not enough employment opportunities in Odisha. Entirely wrong. My friends who keep saying that must understand that there is an equally large number of people who come from neighboring states to work in Odisha. So India is one. India is one country. There is freedom of movement here. Everybody, according to their own skill set, works in particular conditions, in particular industries. So therefore, let's not say that people go out of Odisha because Odisha is not developed enough. But the point is that many welcome initiatives like the Shramik Sahayata Helpline, Migrant Labour Help Desk, seasonal hostels for children for migrant workers, the strengthening of anti-human traffic units, these are all very important provisions that we brought in, which can be considered at some point, because these codes will undoubtedly see many amendments and changes over the years, because this can't be a static, nothing is carved in stone. So therefore, I have no doubt. The other thing that we have done in Odisha, which I also need to flag, is that we have also given a couple of suggestions to the central government. The appropriate government in clause 21D, this needs to be relooked, I think, by the central government, because the central government seems to now want to appropriate everything to itself. You must understand that law and order is a state subject. So therefore, the state government ought to be the appropriate government for the purpose of occupational safety, health in central government factories and other major ports, because these are now all being administered by the state government. So you can't have the state government administering them and the central government be the appropriate government. This is something that the Honorable Minister will probably need to look into. One salutary thing that we have done in Orissa, for instance, is this whole concept of Inspector Raj. 21K still talks of Chief Inspector cum Facilitator. In Orissa, we have now called them Director. I think Inspector has a certain connotation which harks back to some bad times of the 60s, 70s and 80s. When the people who are missing here used to run an Inspector Raj in this country. Those days are now gone. So therefore, perhaps the nomenclature needs to change with the times as well, Mr. Chairman, sir. 21ZZ worker, you must relook this. Your definition of a worker who's drawing 18,000 rupees, I think is too low a threshold. MSMEs, etc., will find a very large number of workers will go out of the pale of workers. Workers, I think, in today's day and age, indexed to our level of inflation, I think should not be less than 30,000. 30,000 should be a basic benchmark for workers today, because what does it come to? It basically is coming to about 1,200 rupees a day. So I think that's the basic dihadi, as it is called today, ought to be. So therefore, a definition of worker, I think, needs a relook. Now, as far as this second aspect is concerned, this was on the occupational safety. As far as and this is such a large code that you can't talk of everything. So I'm only talking about the very basic things. The second code is, of course, the code on social security. Now, on social security, again, Clause 142, mandatory Aadhaar. This is something that we have all debated again and again. Supreme Court has said that, yes, you can do it by legislation. Now, this again doesn't do it by legislation necessarily, because you will have now left it by delegated legislation. So you can insist upon Aadhaar, therefore, by delegated legislation. Please have a look at it, because Odisha, again, has set an example during the COVID-19. We exempted Aadhaar verification for obtaining goods under the PDS system because many people did not have it. The other thing is that I need to show is that again there is some delegated legislation on some other issues, but I'm not going to know. It's going to take too much time if I look into it. What I would rather flag is that we have a serious problem with this provision, which makes Mr. Chairman, you will just give me a minute, please. At Section 102 of this Social Security Code, this 102 into brackets 2 and 100 into brackets 3 is something that the Odisha government and I think all state governments will have a serious problem. One of the criticisms, obviously, of this legislation is going to be that there is a lot of entrenchment upon the powers of the state. And this particularly, which is the objective of the Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Cess Act, is to augment the resources of the state BOC boards constituted under the Building and Other Construction Workers Act. Here again, the central government has sought to move in and says, as may be prescribed by the central government, and in 100 into brackets 3, or any other authority in such manner as may be prescribed by the central government. This, I think, entrenches far too deep into the domain of the state government. These are basic bulwarks of the state government, which the state governments use for benefic social causes. And therefore, I urge the central government to revisit and relook this at some point in time. The last bit is, of course, the industrial code. Now, on the industrial code, I have a very serious concern. Honorable Law Minister will again bear with me on this. Clause 55(4) on the dispute resolution mechanism talks of allows the appropriate government, state or center, to modify or reject an award issued by tribunals in the interest of, into inverted commas, public grounds affecting national economy or social justice. The Honorable Minister will recall, he's a senior counsel of great eminence. There was an identical provision, parameteria provision of Section 17A in the Industrial Disputes Act. This was struck down by the Andhra Pradesh High Court earlier. Similar provision was also struck down by the Madras High Court. This is bound to be challenged, because you cannot undo a quasi-judicial court's order by legislation, so therefore, or by executive action. So therefore, I believe that something like Clause 55(4) is not going to stand, and if it is challenged, then it is not going to stand the scrutiny of the courts. So therefore, apart from that, there are many other provisions in the Industrial Relations Code which have diluted the provisions with regard to trade unions, with regard to strikes. One particular thing which leaves me a little concerned is the fact that theoretically this code leaves open the possibility of an employee working on a fixed term contract almost indefinitely. Now, that is something that is not desirable at all. It is something that I think something that the government will probably need to look into at some point of time. Clause 40 also allows the employer to change conditions of service related to suspension for misconduct and means of redress without giving any notice to the worker. This again tilts the balance of power, I think, towards the employer, leaving the employee in a very vulnerable situation. The other thing is the registrar. It appears that clause 9 for registration of trade unions, the notes on clauses included towards the end of the bill required the registrar to decide on an approval / refusal of registration within 45 days. However, the actual text of the clause now, Mr. Minister, does not specify this. The notes require the registrar to give reasons for refusing registration. This is again missing in the actual text. The reasons are only required to be given in the case of cancellation of certificate of registration, not for refusal for registration. That's not a happy situation. So we see that many of the essential features of the law which was in 2019 and now which is, of course, the Honorable Minister has withdrawn. Many of these features are no longer specified in the codes and have been delegated to be prescribed by the government through rules. My feeling and the feeling of a number of newspapers today this morning, for instance, many editorials feel that many of these important questions should have been hard-coded into the Act itself rather than being left to delegated legislation. All I can say is it's been a painstaking exercise, like I said in the beginning. It has creases. Something which runs into 350 pages, has 411 clauses, is bound to have creases. I am not, therefore, shying away from the fact that while the government's intent is good, going forward, the government may need to iron out many of these creases. Be that as it may, my government is duty-bound, since this is in the interest of the nation. It's in the interest of furthering the business climate, the ease of doing business in India. Therefore, my government under Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik is therefore happy to support this piece of legislation brought today. But with many of these issues that need to be ironed out, I would request the government to kindly look into these matters and over a period of time try and iron out these issues. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for being patient.
Shri Margani Bara